I've always been curious last year as Nikola Jokic is having another historic season, and you and Jamal, and I assume to some degree it was separate rehab, but you and Jamal coming back from a back surgery in your case, a knee injury in Jamal's case, and you're watching Nikola go on this historic run and sort of realizing the limitations of that team.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever discuss? And I know as an athlete coming back from an injury, you're sort of wired to worry a lot about yourself. I think that's naturally human nature. Am I going to be the same? Am I going to return to an elite level? But did you guys ever discuss just the two of you coming back to this team and what that would mean to Jokic and the team's ceiling?
Yeah, so you know how it is rehabbing with the NBA team. You're always in that training room. So me and Jamal spent so much time in that training room together. We really grew a bond during that time that we didn't necessarily have before. Watching the whole season, me and him sitting on the bench watching Nicola. But like you said, we saw that that team had limitations, and we saw that they got to the playoffs. They lost to the Warriors, but the fact that they got there, I think we knew if we could get back, me and Jamal, and provide Nicola some help and everything like that. I think we knew we had a real chance of creating something special. But we kind of knew that all the way back from when we first traded for Aaron. We traded for Aaron, and then I think we reeled off like 7 or 8 games in a row right after that trade where we just looked pretty hard to beat. So me and Jamal knew we needed to attack this rehab, and then if we could get that core back together,
Yeah.
we'd have a real chance of being contenders.
Yeah, and to a degree, we should also mention KCP, Bruce Brown, who I can't believe was picked up in free agency at the contract that he was on. He's been such a monster for you guys, especially in the playoffs. Some good minutes from Christian Brown, a rookie. It just feels like all the pieces sort of fit. On Jamal, in one of the playoff games that I did for you guys, Coach Malone referred to him as another superhero, meaning Nicola's a superhero. Jamal's also a superhero. And throughout this playoff run, he's certainly backed that up, especially in the conference finals. How would you sort of describe his play as a teammate and just being out on the court and watching him hit clutch bucket after clutch bucket, tough bucket after tough bucket, and just being such an instrumental part of this run?
Yeah, first of all, like I'm just super happy and proud for him because I remember even like at the beginning of this year when we first got back on the floor together, we still didn't feel like ourselves. We still didn't really feel like we could contribute like we wanted to. But at this point in the season, like I told Jamal a few weeks ago, I think he's better now than he was in the bubble. And it's just different now than even in the bubble, just because, you got the crowd that plays into it. You're on the road some games, hostile environment. And he's still hitting those same clutch shots and things that he was doing in the bubble. So I think that's just in his makeup. He rises to the occasion, similar to Joker. I think similar to a lot of guys on our team. We stay pretty poised. A lot of different guys have hit huge shots this playoffs, but Jamal consistently playing that well down the stretch in the fourth quarter has been amazing to watch. I think one of the things I admire most, you might agree as a shooter, is like seeing guys that no matter how many shots they miss, then they come out of it and then they make shots at the end of the game. I think that's something that I really appreciate. Like when Jason Tatum did that, I think game 6 in
Game six,
Philly,
yeah.
and then Jamal did that when he had that 23-point fourth quarter. I really appreciate that because I know once you miss a certain amount of shots in a row, if you don't have that mental strength to kind of overcome that, that can be tough to get out of.
Shooters have to shoot. And I think the ability to not get in your own head a little bit, if you're 1 for 10 or 9 for 10, just treating sort of every shot as the same. But there is something, and Jamal, I think, had 23 in that quarter and then 30 in the subsequent half. So he had 53 in 3 quarters or whatever it was. There is something about seeing the ball go in multiple times in a row where you're on a burner and nothing really matters at that point, and you feel like every single shot is going in. And Jamal's had that. Tommy and I, we've talked a ton during these playoffs about the 2-man game between Jokic and Murray, and I'm not sure there's an easy answer in terms of defending that, but overall, just playing with Nikola and how your offense is structured around cutting and dribble handoffs, it looks like it's fairly easy to play with him.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's extremely easy to play with him because, first of all, if it gets low shot clock, he's had multiple times where he's bailed us out at the end of the shot clock, throwing up those crazy shots. And you just he does a great job. And I think I've heard you guys talk about this before, but like getting the ball out of his area, you know what I mean? So even if you're entering it into the post, like if you just throw it anywhere near Nikola, it's like he's gonna get it, and then you know what I mean. You don't really have to worry about a turnover. But I think it's super easy to play off of him. That two-man game is super lethal. And I think that the thing that makes our team hard to guard is if you hit Nicole in the post and you don't double, you know what I mean? He's going to have his way with most players in the league. But if you do double and then Aaron floods to the front of the rim, now that's a little dump down pass for Aaron who can, you know, get up quick and dunk it. Or you have shooters on the backside that are, you know, trying to space correctly. And it creates a really tough dynamic. So I just really think the pieces that we have is like you couldn't have found a better piece than KCP for that 3-and-D type player. You know, Aaron Gordon's the perfect complementary piece for Nikola. And then, you know, Jamal and Nikola got that two-man game, and then I'm, you know, out there as well. So it's just tough to stop, I think.
So what's your general priority once they get into the two-man game? Does it change depending on the matchup, or is it sort of similar no matter what?
Yeah, it changes. It changes depending on the matchup, and it changes depending on the coverage. So early in the game, we like to go to some of that and go to Nicole on the post, see how they're going to guard those situations. But I mean, I feel like a lot of guys on our team sacrifice for the good of our team. You know what I mean? Like me and KCP find ourselves in the corner like a lot, but it's for the spacing so that two-man game will work. And then if they want to bring a low man in, then you know we're getting wide open threes. Like we've had multiple games this playoffs where we've won and guys haven't necessarily shot the ball amazing. You know what I mean? So we're getting a lot of open shots, and I feel like we haven't even played like to our full capability yet. There's been games where Jamal's been hot, but Nikola, me, Aaron may not necessarily have played well. So we played well. I still feel like we have another gear that we can reach that we're looking to do this finals.
It's a scary proposition. On the note, I think this is interesting because, Nikola is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. Jamal's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And I think to some degree that benefits Aaron, who was probably asked to do more than he's comfortable with in prior stops in Orlando. And again, he wasn't necessarily always playing on a contender, so any player that's going to have a different role once they get to a contender, you have to sacrifice a little bit. And I thought it was interesting, and I watch you guys a ton, and I've called a number of your games this year, and Michael Malone speaks so highly of the rest of your game besides the shooting piece. But I think to some degree, you probably offensively have to sacrifice in terms of the usage stuff. But I've been really impressed with some off the bounce stuff, particularly driving closeouts and finishing at the rim. Your cutting off of Nikola has been awesome. But most impressive to me in this playoff run has been the rebounding, 7 double-doubles, and the defense. In particular, just the ability to sort of simultaneously run guys off the line and get a good contest. Do you feel like you are even close to your peak as a player?
No, I definitely don't. And I think honestly, offensively, I played decent in spurts this playoffs. The playoffs is a lot different than the regular season, the looks you get. But yeah, I've tried to just contribute to the team in rebounding and just defensively. You have to play defense if you want to stay out there. So I definitely don't think I've reached even close to where I can be. I think this last offseason after my third back surgery, it was all about rehabbing and trying to just get back on the floor. And now kind of throughout the season, I've gotten a little bit healthier, but we're still trying to tweak out some things that I'm dealing with, like the brace that I use. How can we make that a little bit more flexible so I can move a little bit better? There's a lot of stuff that I'm playing through that if we can get that figured out a little bit more, it'll really help my just overall movement and game. But now, man, like I'm used to being able to do a lot of things like just growing up that I'm not necessarily doing right now, that I'm having to like adjust my game right now. But I think that getting some of that back, the athleticism back over time, um, that'll come with time, and then continuing to try to stay healthy and continuing to work on my game, which I know I'm going to do. I think I definitely have a few more notches I could go, sure.